Hello everybody, welcome to the class today, part 2 of our realistic eye. I'm quite looking forward to it. Our eye's looking quite good so far. Lots of skin textures to do today. And then of course those lovely, those crazy eyebrows. I love drawing crazy eyebrows. So let's get going. Let's go and take a look at the drawing. We'll see how far we are because we had some homework to do, remember? So I've done mine. I hope you've done yours. Let's go and take a look and see what it looks like. Alrighty, so that's what my eye looks like at the moment. Let me just get a pencil or something to point with. So I've now done this piece here extra, and then just that little corner over there. So if you haven't done yours, don't worry, it's not a panic. Or if you battled with yours, don't worry, it's not a panic. We'll have lots of practice of it today over here and over here. So we're going to see how far we can get. We'll start here. I'll show you how to get this lovely skin texture and the eyebrows, and then we'll continue here until our time's up. So we'll see how far we can get. Hi, Melissa, Marie-Claire, Scars, Christine. So what lies ahead today is we'll start here. We'll get this last little bit of wrinkle by the forehead shaded in. There's some nice pore texture over there which we can get, and here's tons of pore texture. It's quite a unique rough skin this gentleman has got. Lots of sun, I'm assuming, so we'll get that drawn in over there. And then we'll pop in these eyebrows. So the first thing that we need to do, this is now neat paper, right? So we need to just get some tonal value down there. So I'm going to take my paper that I've scratched the pencil onto. Just hold it like that so it's not shiny. So I've got a big, essentially graphite stick. It's a 9B. Which I use, and I just scratch over there. This way I'm not using up my pencils. This thing lasts for years and years and years and years and years and years and years because it's so big. And now I'm just going to take my cloth, rub over here to pick up some of that graphite onto the cloth. Same as we did some of it last week over there, right? And that's going to allow me to just get a quick little base tonal value down there. So I'll do it over the whole area, and then when we get to the good stuff I'll zoom in a bit closer. So here where it needs to be darker, you can add a few more layers of this. So every time let me put that over there just for a few seconds to show you. I'm picking up, wiping it down, pick it up, wipe it down, so that every time there's new graphite, I'm not pressing hard on the paper. It's a gentle pressure. That way I'm not squishing the graphite into the texture of the paper. So I can erase it and lift it up at any time. Alright, so let's zoom in to just this little corner area. Let me get the reference photo up for us as well. Just that little corner area over there. And let's get going. So, as we did in the previous class, our first mission now is to get this shape right. We want to get that rounding. So this here is really, really dark. So I'm going to start with an 8B. Let's pop our pencil legend over there. So whatever color pencil I'm using, you can reference it with how hard or soft it is. So we'll start with the 8B. And I like to start with the dark area because then you know you're not going to accidentally go too dark. And then from there you can start getting a feel for how hard you must press to get the correct tonal value. I always like to start too light and then I'll go darker and darker. And that way you can get a feel for what needs to be done. It's really quick to adjust tonal values. So this whole area here above the eyebrow, it's lighter than there, but it's darker than it is now. So you just got to make sure that you've got enough contrast between there and there to create that distance. Remember, something that's dark looks further away, and something that's light appears closer. But we still need to get it dark enough to show that this area here is in shadow. Can you see your eyebrow itself is casting a shadow onto the skin below it? Right, so I'll get this here nice and dark. Really good deep crevice there. Alright, so from here you need to really look beyond the eyebrows themselves and look at the texture of the skin underneath. Can you see that it's almost like little lines? You can see it really nicely in this area over here where your skin has got like lines to it. So in this area here, it's really quite pronounced. But it's not a solid line. So what I'm doing is I'm using like little taps. So I'm lifting my pencil up and down, up and down, up and down to get that. And as I come over, I'm not necessarily ending up over the same place again. And that's starting to give me that rough texture that you see there. So I'm always referencing from the photograph, because what you do need to do is get these line directions right. That's really important, because those directions tell you how the skin is curving, because this is always going to conform to the contours of your skin. Okay, let's start getting this here a little bit darker. So this whole area here, I'm darkening it up, but maybe I can move that reference photo just down to there. Although this is dark, it's not a hard line. Can you see that? It's a continuous shading. As this skin over here rounds down into that crevice area over there. And then this piece here just seems to be, he is now the deepest, and that's why he's the darkest. So we're first going to just get this shading right to get that shape. And then we come back in and we add all that lovely pore detail into it. So at this stage it's also good to stand back every now and again, just to make sure that you've got these shadings right. So I'm going to continue shading here until I've got the shading as close I can judge it. Very, very light touch. No pressure whatsoever on the pencil. I'm letting the softness of the pencil do the work for me. So at this point I can erase anything. It's not a problem. Yeah, that should be fine there like that. Alright, so now we'll continue to gradually darken up these pores. So I'm just using a little circular motion. Because what happens with those pores, maybe I'll take a piece of paper and we'll just do one, but like on a large scale, so that you can see what's actually happening there. Let's do that. So we've got some skin. Let's get a bit of tonal value there. Right, so we've got some skin over there. Now what happens is that skin is now gets like a dent in it. I could demonstrate it another way. Let me just get some. Before we actually draw it, then we can visualize it. Right, so what I've got here is just some Play-Doh. Alright, so there I'm just forming a nice flat area for skin. Then your pores dent in like that. So obviously this is now well exaggerated. But that's essentially what happens. So look what happens. You've got a shadow side and you've got a highlight side. In other words, each one of your pores forms its own little highlight and a shadow, and that shows you that little valley over there. So now you've got your skin over here. So what happens is, in this case, our light is coming from the right to the left. I was just checking, making sure. Yeah, from the right to the left, you can see it on that, on this fold over here. Can you see that? Here's light, and that side of the fold that's bending over or curling over, he's dark. So because your pores are dented in, it's concave, the side closest to the light is in shadow. Because as he curls away from the light can't get there. But then on the other side, as it curls back up again, you've got that. This part of your skin is now pointing towards the light. But it's continuous. It's not as hectic as it was with like we had with the Play-Doh. So you've got that, and then it fades on this side, lighter over there, and darker on that side over there. And that's going to give you a continuous it's going to give you those dents. So can you see what I've done over there? I've put that guy down, And then I've faded him out. And that's what you're now going to do the whole time. Think of it as though you're lightly polishing that little area with little circles, with little lines. So we're going to be doing quite a bit of this today to get that effect. So in this area here, it's quite dark. So what you do is you've got, because they sort of form lines, you do this, do this, do this, you get those little pores, and you just lightly connect them with each other, just with a lighter tonal value, like that. So yeah, it's very pronounced, so you'll find it is quite time consuming, but later on when we get to the rest of the skin, you'll see it can actually go quite fast. The main thing is that you realize that these are they're continuous shadings. You know, you can't go hard. Go to there. You can't press hard and do this kind of a thing. It's not going to work. You have to do gentle little shadings like that. And if it's really large, then you'd go a little bit more in the center to get that a gradual shading. It's not solid. And then you come back in on the highlight side. And just gently lighten up that little highlight over there. Can you see that? It gives you a little dent. So these ones here are now quite pronounced, because it's in the darker, sort of darker area. As we come to this area here, can you see they're not as pronounced? So we'll show you a different trick that we do there with that. Okay, so there's a little highlight over there, so I'm going to lift him out. Just using my pen-shaped eraser. Okay, so as I add these guys in, I'm also constantly checking my tonal values. Am I dark enough yet or not? Okay, remember to connect those lines up with each other with a lighter tonal value to get that direction right. Alright, so over here, things are a lot lighter, hey? So what I do is I put that initial tonal value down, and I'm going to take my my pen-shaped eraser. And I'm first just going to plot out some of these directions. So I'm doing exactly the same with a pencil. Let me do this on a larger scale. Let's go back to here again. So essentially I'm doing this. Little circular motions like that. And then I'm connecting them. And as I do every now and again, I'm turning my eraser to get a clean area. If it gets too dirty, then I just go ahead and wipe it off on my, I've got jeans. I usually wear jeans, so I just wipe it off on the pants. Okay, so here they're going straight down. And now this is starting to give us that texture. So again, can you see how the shape is turning, is changing as it conforms to the shape of the face? There's some over here as well. And just a few little guys inside that darker area over there. Even just use like little tapping motion in this area. Hi Basil, Susan, doesn't matter if you're late. That's quite alright. Okay, so we can continue a little further on. So it's tap, 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 tap like that. But because I'm sort of squiggling my hand as I go, it's giving me that uneven look. Alright, so now, before class, I said you must make yourself a tortillon or a blending stump. That looks like this. So if you haven't made one yet, I do have a separate video that goes into really high detail of how to make one. But in general, you'll just take a standard sheet of paper like this, rip it in half. So I just use the edge of the table. To rip him in half like that. And you take yourself a piece of masking tape, or sellotape or something like that. Keep him handy because you're going to need him shortly. Put him down, press in the center, and I roll him up like an ice cream cone. Like that. Grab that little inside guy over there, and now this outside bit, and just twist and pull this guy until that tip is as sharp as you can get it. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of finagling to get him there. Once you've done that, you just stick him down so that he stays in place. Alright, so I'm going to go back to this guy, and I'm going to use him to pick up some graphite onto the blending stump. And now we're going to take in between all these guys, we're going to do the same thing using the blending stump. So I put a few little marks down, and then I just pick up some more. And why we're using the blending stump and not a pencil is because this guy tends to give you more an automatic shaded effect. So let's go and zoom back in there again. Get a closer view. So in this area, it's really quite pronounced, these, like that ribbed type of effect. So I'm putting down little marks and then connecting them. And now all the while I'm working in between those initial little erased marks that we did. Okay, in this area over here, can you see it's not as pronounced? So we haven't put as much we haven't erased as many lines either. So just these marks over here will often do the trick. Can you see the skin texture gradually coming out? There's a more prominent place. So I'll do that, put him down and fade him out. And don't worry too much if you put it in maybe too prominent. That's also okay. It's easy for us to come back afterwards and just soften it out. Or it's possible, put it that way. It's better not to, but it's easy for us to do it. So you will also now find that every now and again your blending stump will maybe become a little bit too you'll blunt out if you're pressing too hard on him, which ideally you won't do. You won't be pressing hard on him. Then just take off the masking tape and just reform it. So what I like also about using the stump like this is now you put down a mark and it becomes there becomes a pore. But now, because there's only a little bit of graphite on that tip, it instantly goes over and starts shading that mark. Where if you were using a pencil, it's going to continue to lay down graphite. The blending stump, or the blending stump doesn't do that. So as you can see, it does take, you've got to be patient when you're doing this. That is something that when we started the class, I did warn you, we're going to have to be patient. But if you want that hyper-realistic look, that's just now what you got to do. So we'll just continue on now like this for a while. So I come back and I make a few more prominent of these pores. I make some of them more prominent than others. And that stops it from getting that monotonous look. And what I'll also do is, maybe you've got, let's say, a line or two over there. I'll come back in and just in between them, here and there, just as a break of the pattern. You've got a distinct pattern, and then you come back in and you break that pattern here and there, so that you don't have a solid line. Remember, these are not solid lines. The shape is more something like this. As you get those pores, look carefully and you'll see it. You'll see what I mean. That's why when we did the erasing stage, we used little squiggles. Right, so this area over here is now lighter, so I'm going to just continue to add more lighter bits. So I'm just erasing sort of in between those pores, and even sometimes the pores themselves I will lighten up. Little dots, little dabs and dashes and dots that are being lifted out over here. Alrighty, so let's go to there so you can start to see the effect. Can you see that? So yeah, it is a little time consuming, but look at the effect that you get. It's well worth it. Let's maybe put the let's put those guys down there. Then they're out the way. Right, so here we're getting a bit darker as our face curls around like that. There's less light in this area over here. So we need to darken up. So I think we can probably get darker first going just using the cloth. That's going to give us a nice flat shading over there. So just add a few layers of this. Should have continued that texture all the way to the top, eh? Okay, there and here, because your eyebrow, the hairs themselves cast a shadow over there. I'm going to add some more texture down, or some more graphite over here as well to darken this area up. So look what's happening. You're starting off with a nice smooth skin tone. And then you're darkening it up from there. Or roughening it up. Alrighty, so this area is not anywhere near as prominent as that over there, eh? So it'll go quite a bit quicker. So I'm just going to work in a few little lighter bits, sort of similar to what we did over there. I'll stay wide for a while. Just so that you can get the overall picture of what I'm doing. And I'm going to do it normal speed, because you now know what I'm doing, and then you can see how quick this can actually go. So I'm just lifting out little patches. Random little patches. So I'm almost, think of it as I'm scribbling without stopping. And these little scribbles is giving you that texture of the skin, because it's now creating little highlights and little shadows. Let's see if we can judge that little, see there's a little lighter area over there. Let's see if we can judge him in correctly. There's a lighter guy over there. Okay, so as we come to here, is now gradually getting rougher and rougher. So I'm starting to work a little bit more in that line type effect. So now I'm going back to my squiggled lines that we did initially over there to get that texture. And as we get here inside the The eyebrow, there's no texture to draw because it's going to all just disappear on us. So all we're interested in there is just getting that tonal value. If the tonal value is good, then we're good. Okay, so that's great. Let's see, maybe a little bit more erased texture over here. Can you see the squiggles that I'm doing? Always following that shape of the face. Okay, so now we've lifted out highlights. Now we can put in some highlights. Now we can put in some darker areas. Very, very gentle with the pencil. So now you're working in between those initial erase marks that you did. Remember now, at the end of the day, what you're doing is creating those little highlights and those little shadows as you get the wrinkles in the skin. So that's all we're doing now, just adding ourselves that texture. So sometimes I'm working in large bits, and other times I'm working just little finer details like that to get that kind of a pore effect over there. Okay, over there we can go back to our blending stump. Like I say, I'm working now at full speed so that we can get this done in a reasonable amount of time. So I want to show you that you can take commissions and do realistic portraits like this, and it can actually only take you, if you really get the hang of it, it only takes you a day. But you can charge an absolute fortune for them because not too many people can draw with so much detail because they just don't know how. They haven't learned the techniques. Okay, see, I'm here also using that stump. I'm creating a few little larger dark bits as well. And you'll find that once you've got a bit of practice, you can actually, as you do it, you can, as you put on, let's say for example, you've now scribbled in a few little erased lines, you can actually see, you can visualize the pores on the skin. You can visualize that textures, those textures. That textures. How's that for a grammar fail? Right, I just need to also do this little top bit. I didn't go all the way out to the edge of the picture for some bizarre reason. I'm just continuing that. Even over there, I think that's what happened when I did my homework bits. I didn't go all the way out the picture. And that formed a little border in my head, which I've just continued all the way, naturally continued all the way down. Right, so now that I've got that area there, I can see there's a few little tonal values around here that can be fixed up. Remember, always come back and check previous previous areas that you've done. And check those tonal values of yours, especially. As you can see now, it's really quick to do those adjustments. Who would have thought you'd be drawing with a piece of paper today instead of a pencil? Alrighty, so right next to that little highlight bit is a nice little shadow to really show you that you've got some depth over there. Here I'm also seeing like a little distinct highlight over there like that. So now that I've spotted it, I'm going to put it in. So you've got the highlight bit. Remember, a highlight bit is either something that's coming prominently out or prominently in. So if it comes in or out, it needs a shadow as well. So you're going to work in that shadow there. And this is what happens as you draw, you gradually start getting some detail down there, and as you get some detail down there, then other details start popping out at you. Then you can go ahead and put them in. If, and this is the big if, to save you a lot of time and hassle, if it's prominent. If it's not that prominent, then don't worry too much about it. Okay, this area is looking good. It's just still a little bit dark. So I'm just going to come back in with the eraser and lighten some of the darker bits. So let me show you what I'm doing there on a larger scale. What I'm doing is this. I'm lightening there, lightening there, lightening there. Just random places like that to show more pores. But obviously each time it's a little shading. So I put a mark and I soften its edge like that. Little circular motions. Okay, we're getting there, eh? There's also another little lighter area over there. So I put it in, add a little bit of shading to it. Okay, here we're now at the side of the face. So that's fine there like that. Let's add a little bit more texture over there. We only did here, right? We didn't continue all the way along there. So start with your little wiggles and squiggles. All in the correct directions. Right. And now we can come darken up the bits. bits in between. Right, I think we're almost there. Just a few more little wiggles and squiggles here, just to add extra, just a little bit of extra texture. So I'm adding them in different directions. Alrighty, so let's add those eyebrows in. Before we continue, I want to briefly tell you about my real-time paint and draw along art classes on my website. For a very small amount, you can get access to over 400 paint and draw along tutorials where you pack out your art supplies and you follow along as I show and explain to you in step-by-step detail how to complete each project. There are classes in acrylic, oil, watercolor, pencil, soft pastel, and even lesser known mediums like pen and ink and sketchboarding. There's a link in the description below. Take a look. You'll be amazed at the awesome classes available there. Alrighty, let's continue from where we left off. Okay, so with the 8B, make sure that is now nice and sharp. So if necessary, sharpen your pencil. So I think I'm going to just do that with mine. Give him a quick sharpen. Just to make sure that you have a nice sharp point with which you can do nice sharp lines, nice thin lines. Alright, so now at this stage I'm going to have to lie my hand over all of that. So I've got a bit of transparency over here. It's just tracing paper. So I just put that down there and I rest my hand on that. So now I'm not going to be smudging all that fancy detail over there as I work. So what I'll do when I'm doing the eyebrows like this is I'm going to first just plot in the shape of this guy. So I'll slowly draw in just a few of these hairs to get a feel for their shapes and their directions and where they belong. And I know this is the terrible part. We all hate this bit because you've done all this hard work over here and now you have to go and draw over it. So you have to be really brave every time you do this. So always try and start rather a little bit too small. You'd rather have the eyebrow a little bit too small initially and then gradually make it larger. Then the other way around, start off with this eyebrow that's too big and then you've got a problem because now you can't erase. There's no way you can erase. Okay, so now that we've got a good feel for where these hairs go and their shapes and their directions. Now you can just gradually fill it up. You've got the outside ones, so now we're just trying to create a mass. So it doesn't take too long, so that's why I don't rush it. I'm being quite purposeful about each stroke. So you'll see that eyebrows don't grow perfect. They do tend to do their own thing. Especially with this gentleman over here, he's got a fair amount of eyebrows doing their own thing. So don't be shy to make them a little bit here and there, higgledy-piggledy. Alright, here, can you see we've got distinct little, the odd hair growing out of distinct places. So what you're going to do is you're going to find one of your pores that you've already drawn, and you're going to make that hair come out of the pore, because that's exactly the way it would be in real life. So we're mimicking that. And there's one flyaway hair over there. Some of these hairs are shorter than others. And now you can see the value of getting in those individual pores and so on. Alright, so now we're going to stand back again, because we've got enough hair. Can you see the ratio of hair is correct? The tonal values and stuff don't look right, but that's to be expected. That's correct. So let's dump that, and we stand back again. Alright, so now you're just going to check yourself. So it looks like I can go a little bit higher, like this. So stand back and check. Just get those shapes and things right. That hair is quite a bit higher over there. And we had a few little crazy flyaway ones over there. And a few more prominent ones over here. And that's enough. Alright, so remember we said your hair casts a shadow on the area underneath it. Alright. So that's what you're going to test now. So you're going to shade underneath the eyebrow. Go straight over those hairs. Remember, those hairs are now really dark. So you can go straight over them without any kind of problems whatsoever. And you're going to get those tonal values correct. Okay, here on this edge, darkening it up again. Remember we were doing it earlier over there in the previous class. Adding some more onto this one, so that as it curls over, it gradually gets darker and darker, and you can't see where this eyebrow piece ends and the eyelid piece starts. It's called an occlusion zone, where the tonal values just become the same and you can't tell where it starts and ends. Here we can also just darken this area up here a little bit more. So can you see how I'm scratching over it? I'm essentially doing this, but over the same, roughly the same area. Now, because you can't go exactly over the same area, you end up getting yourself a bit of a shading, because you're going to go more over that central bit where you're aiming for. But now, because you're not getting it perfect, so I'm going to just continue and continue and continue and continue, and you'll see the effect. You get an automatic shading. From darker here, lighter to there, lighter to there. And that's giving you that depth of the wrinkle and a shading at the same time. Okay, so we're getting a nice likeness of this gentleman now. Here I'm just doing basic shadings again, getting that rounding right. So remember, we've stood back. Because we've stood back, now we're seeing those little tonal value changes and so on that still need to happen. Okay, there we go. I can see over here as well, some of these lines can go a bit more prominent, so I'm actually going to use my pencil. And I'm going to squiggle exactly like I did using the eraser, just using the pencil, and that'll connect those pores with each other, forming those little lines that we've got. So I'm not using any kind of pressure, it's very gentle. I can rather go over it multiple times to get that texture right. Then get it too dark too quickly. Alrighty, what do you think? Do you think this area is good enough now? Suppose you could sit and fiddle for days, but I think our tonal values and everything are pretty good over there. Yeah, I'm just adding one or two little, just a darker crevice here and there, just to deepen those wrinkles ever so slightly. Right, so I think just to, so that we can really get the full effect, let's darken that up. So I'm going to take I'll take this 9B graphite stick. You could use a pencil as well. Okay, so we do have one or two little hairs that are overlapping over there. So let's do this. I'm just going to use a craft knife. And I'm going to scratch in one or two of these hairs. Hopefully that's broad enough. Let's check it. If it isn't, we'll just erase them. That's fine. It's not the end of the world. So as you can see, I'm putting in too light. Always too light. Because that allows you to make changes and adjustments. Start off too light. Let's maybe just do that. Let's see. Are we seeing those little flyaway hairs? Yeah, no. So let's just erase them, and then as we go along, we'll gradually continue erasing them. Alright, so now that I'm happy with what I've got over there, now I'm going to start pressing harder. On the pencil. And let's get this little edge here nice and dark. This dark here is going to make the whole face stand out nicely. Okay, so I'm going to leave that here just a little bit too thick. It's easy to gradually come along and thin him down again. Just by slowly going closer and closer and closer to that hair. Alright, it seems like the majority is done there now, so now we can quickly color in the rest. So we do want this nice and dark, so I'm pressing quite hard. And I'm going to use multiple directions as well. To make sure that I'm not getting any kind of a pattern in this background. Okay, so let's make these hairs thinner and thinner and thinner. So I'll go back to my 8B pencil. I'm going to gradually go closer and closer and closer until there's just a sliver shining through. And that's how we get those little individual thin flyaway hairs in these darker areas over here. Can you see how nice it makes that face stand out now? Stands out quite nice, eh? Right, so I'm just going to add 1 or 2 little textures here on this edge of the face so it's not smooth. And that just shows you that the face rounds off. There's other things happening out of view. And then of course, like over here, we're getting that tonal value correct. Okay, let's continue over there. Okay, so we can go over there. Let's get our photograph down there as well, our reference. Like that. Alrighty, so let's get some tonal value down here, this area. So can you see the faces as curling around? We've got some highlights sort of in this area here. And a lovely highlight running along here. And then here on that side of the face, it's getting darker and darker as it curls away from the light. So what you can do is you can now actually go ahead and fill in most of this. I'll go there and then all the way to the side of the nose. So this whole section here is sort of seen as one thing. So you can quickly add yourself just a basic little tonal value here using the cloth, and that gives you that initial little shape. I can see it's darker over there. So it takes you seconds using the cloth to get this basic shape plotted in. So you know where's what. That little dark goes a little bit further down there as it follows the cheekbone. There, like that. Can you see how quickly you've established that shape? A little bit of a rounding over there. And still add a little bit of tonal value here in these lighter areas, because otherwise you've got nothing to erase. Actually, I think I'll leave that there for now. And now what we can do is plot out all of this roughly in one go. So you can get your darker guys in, just get them roughly established. And judge, see for example this curl over here, I'm judging that with what I've got before. So he's around there below that guy. He comes down somewhere in that vicinity there. This little dark bit comes down according to those. See there's a little dent over there. So he comes down according to that dent. Here's another guy over here. First comes straight down, and then he goes a little like that, and then he seems to hook back up again. Is he in exactly the right place? Probably not. Here, this guy over there, he seems to follow that line there. Also around the face, and then he's got that little guy happening over there. Down here, there's a few more little distinct guys. There's a distinct guy over there. In other words, I'm giving myself just a few markers that I can judge everything else with. There's a darker guy over there. All this here is really dark. And here's some distinct deeper pores happening over there as well. Yes, remember this is all about the shape, getting that shape right. So we can add that tonal value in, and just a basic little shading. It's not going to be dark enough yet, but it's going to give us that initial shape. Just that initial little bit of information that we need. Okay, so running on there, there's a little darker line there, so I'm just running him in like that, and then over there, there's another guy, a shorter one in that vicinity there, and an even shorter one curling around like that, giving us a little darker patch over there. Great, so over here, there's a little darker guy over there, and then it tends to come down and curl back up over here. There's a guy running along there, so in other words this guy needs to come down a bit. And around there's another little guy coming there. And then around here, there's another distinct little line there in the skin. Okay, so those are enough little distinctive marks that we have for this gentleman. So let's start adding in just a few more finer guys using the eraser. Or the pencil, whichever one is easier for you. If you see there's maybe like a little darker spot that you see, put him in, because you know next to him there's going to be highlights. So that we'll lift out those little highlights and things. Really quickly and according to your best estimate. There's a few little marks over there. There I see a little line. And as I go, I'm quickly popping these guys in. Really quick. And can you see that the contrasts are way too much? And that's fine. We're okay with that at this stage. We can easily go over them with a cloth and so on. To get those tonal values right. Just a quick little layer of graphite over the whole thing. Okay, so here in this area, it's pretty much the same kind of effect as what we had on the forehead. You see that? So I'm going to wiggle and squiggle in some of these lines over here. And then we'll sort them out from there. Okay, I think that's a large enough area for us to get going on. So we can go to there. So can you see how quickly you've got a texture down there? So now we'll go back to the blending stump again and add little finer little shadings inside these little areas here. So what I do with this, I'm estimating these wrinkles as best I can. I'm never going to get them exact, and that's why we've got those initial guys in, just to give us that that likeness. Those initial guys we put in is what we needed to get the likeness. All the rest that we're doing now is all just to get texture in the skin. It does not need to be exact whatsoever. So all you're looking to do is get just that roughness. Okay, so can you see that guy there is now way too dark? So just take your kneaded eraser, form a little point, and just tap over him. And you can do that to get little highlights in as well. Let's say, for example, you've got a little over there like that, and now you want to highlight it. So just make sure you've got a nice sharp point like this, and just tap on that little area. If you now do find even that is a little bit too blunt, then come back in, say, with a 2H pencil and a super sharp point. Then you can darken those areas up in between, and that's going to make it more pronounced. Okay, so this whole area here gradually needs to go darker. What also works nice if you really want to get super fine detail is you can come in here with a mechanical pencil. I will sometimes do that if I'm looking for a specific detail. Sometimes you've got little individual highlights or little individual wrinkles that you do want to get in because they form part of the likeness. Then I'll do that. I'll go ahead and I'll add them in. But in general, I won't. In general, I don't use the mechanical pencil. These pencils work fine. Yes, here we've got really fine little wrinkles. So what the heck, I'm popping them in, seeing as I've got the 2H and I'm busy with fine detail now. So I'll pop them in. Yeah, that'll do over there. Yes, even all these details here, they're too, some of them are too harsh. It's too much of a contrast. So then you just lift them out, soften them up. Alrighty, so I think you've got a really good idea of how to do this now. Now you just need to continue and just build up this texture. I think we'll continue just a little bit more over there, just to get this area right around the eye finished. And then we'll call it a day on this one. So the way I have color coded my pencils is I've just used acrylic paint and I've painted them. For example, this guy over here, you can see, so that I didn't lose the actual number itself. I haven't painted the end, but if you look really carefully, this is a dark green and there's black. These guys over here, I think this here was also a black, and it had a white strip and then went back to black again. So I've just painted straight over that with acrylic paint, and I left this open so that even I myself, even if I haven't got my colors up, I can still on the pencil physically see what it is. And then like this guy here, he was one solid color. So then afterwards I took a pen and I just wrote the HB back in. And this one here, and you can see it hasn't been, the paint isn't pretty. It doesn't need to be pretty, but definitely, I know you don't have to do it, but it definitely does help here in the class, because it's easier for you to instantly see what color I'm using, especially if I forget to tell you what color I'm using or which tonal value I'm using. It's not really colors, tonal values. So here, just picking out those one or two little distinct marks. And then we can come back in with the eraser. And then we'll just work in some of these little textures over here. So always remember for yourself that if you're seeing a little dark area, you know around it there's going to be highlights. They are there, you just have to go and find them. Let's see if maybe I could put the picture. Let's maybe pop the picture in that corner there, That's better. So I'm always just picking out the most prominent bits that I see at the moment. As you put in some prominent bits, then other bits appear more prominent. Because now you're seeing now the detail in between the other detail. And then as you add those guys in, then you start seeing other detail in between the detail again. And so it carries on. Until eventually you've got this fantastic texture going on your drawing. Plenty detail. Out of what initially was just a white piece of paper. Okay, so now I've put in the highlights, so I know around those highlights there's going to be darker guys. So you've got to work them in. You know they're there, so go and look for them. Okay, so in this area here, I've got, that line is not one solid line, it's like little bits of line. So here I'm doing almost like that little flicking that I was showing you over here, this. I'm essentially doing that same kind of a thing, but on a much smaller scale to get some of these little finer details in. So when I see them, I'll put them in. And the more you put in, the easier it becomes to judge the rest around it. So can you see here, we've got some very distinct wiggles and squiggles in there, eh? When you're putting these darker guys in, I'll sometimes, well, more often than not, I'm purposefully going in different squiggles so that they don't follow that they mustn't be carbon copy. They must be different. And that way you're getting these interesting humps and bumps textures. Inside the skin. Okay, now that I've got some darks, I can come back in and lift out some highlights in between them. In all sorts of different directions. And as you erase, you're erasing different places, different amounts. Because you're never going over the same place, the same amount. Some places you're going to go over them a bit more, some places you're going over them a bit less. So you're creating essentially shadings using your eraser. Who would have thought? Now as you do this, just be careful that you don't start creating patterns. Still keep referencing your drawing, or your photograph, I mean. Keep referencing your photograph, finding those little distinct marks and things that you are seeing, and work out those little highlighty details and the really shadowy details and so on. there's a nice little dark area over there. So now it's back to the blending stump again. Let's get some of the darker bits in between. So remember, as you're doing this, always check or judge from stuff that you've already done to get these positions and things correct. And that's how you're going to get these guys more and more accurate. Yeah, so here's a lot of fine little textures. So pop them in like that, and then I get the highlights and just lift them out in between. And then if necessary, come back in with a 2H. And then you can now decide how deep you want those little textures. The deeper you want it, the more you go over it, and darker you make it. Alrighty. I think it's time to stand back on that one again. Because what we need now is to double check our tonal values. Because we're definitely getting the texture. The texture is coming along nicely. And then can you see like this area over here in general is not quite dark enough yet. So I'm going to come back in and just get this whole area darker. Because that overall tonal value, he's the one that shows us that that you've got that cheekbone over here. Yeah, I think we can call it a day on this guy. You've definitely got a good idea of how to do this now. I think you know how to do this now. There's no worries there. You just have to now continue the same texture running all the way down as what we've done at the top there. So it's more of the same. And the same over here. This needs to go a little bit. Just continue building up those the liney textures that you've got. Same as what we did at the top. And his tonal value also needs to go darker because you've got that rounding of the face. So this whole area here needs to now gradually go darker and darker and darker. So then what I do at the end of all of this is then I'll stand back and I'm going to double check all my tonal values. That's really important because now all your paper is filled. So now you can check all these tonal values. For example, can you see here in general, just that area over there needs to go darker. Just to get the depth right and the shape right. So keep checking yourself on all these tonal values here. So you'll find that even your lights in the dark areas, the lights are also darker. So then you'll tone them down. And now is when you can happily press hard because you've finished with this. You're essentially finished with the drawing. All you're doing now is just touch-ups and improvements. So don't be shy now to press hard because there's no chance that you're going to be erasing anything anymore. Everything that you've needed to do is in. All the detail that you need to get in is in. All you're doing now is just adjusting what's already there to get it more accurate. Can you see how quickly it goes? Because everything is already there. So you're just darkening up or lightening up or whatever. The little bits that you've already done. The hard work is there. It's all sorted for you already. There's one last thing we need to do. One last thing. Let's zoom back up to that eyebrow. Let's go and take a look at him again. So I'm just adjusting the camera quickly. Okay, can you see some of those hairs are catching a little highlight? So what you're going to do to get those little highlights in is just put a scrap piece of paper down there. You're going to take your pin-shaped eraser and a craft knife, and you're going to cut that eraser off at 45-degree angle. So make sure your knife is nice and sharp. How can I show that for you? But it gives you a super sharp little angle like that. And a really, really thin line. Just lay down my transparency over there. And now you can just come and over the same area, just very gentle. Just rub over it like that. So pick a hair and just keep going over exactly the same place. And that little highlight will lift out. Just above the hair. Make some of them longer and some of them shorter. And of course, if it goes too thick, just come back in. Nice sharp pencil. Just push him thinner. And if he needs to go behind, just come bring one or two hairs in front of him again. And there's those few little highlights on those hairs. You see how you rub over it? He will eventually lift out. I guarantee it. But you've got to go over the same place. And you don't need to press hard. Keep it gentle. Because that's the gentle rubbing stops your lines from becoming too thick. Let's maybe get one going, crossing that one over there like that. Then I'll give it a gap. like that. So these highlights are going to tend to be on the top areas more than on the bottom areas. And don't add too many, just one or two. It's just that extra detail, because we see it, we put it in. And there you go. That's how you draw a hyper-realistic eye. So I hope you enjoyed that class. In the next one, we're going to do a nose. So if you are a patron, hop onto the website under the Have Your Say page and go and vote for which nose you want me to draw. I've got a reasonably plain, smooth one, and then I've got a bit more of a textured one over there. Go and have your say there and let me know. But the next class is obviously first going to be a painting class. So let me show you what the plan is for that one. Just open him up over here. So that's what we're going to paint in acrylic next. So I'll be painting on a 18 by 14 inch canvas. Again, if you're a patron, you can go and download the template for that and print it out and use that to sketch out onto your canvas. Quite looking forward to that one. When we did the dance with Bougival class, everybody voted between that one and this one, and some places this one, like on Facebook, more people voted for that one, and on the website more people voted for the Renoir. So I decided, let's do this one as well. I think he's going to be great. We'll do both. What the heck. Alrighty, so let's call it a day on that. Thank you for joining me in the class today. I hope you had fun. Good luck drawing your eye and your skin textures. I know you can do it now. See you next time. Cheerio.